everyone. Thanks for joining today. It looks like we've already got people coming in here. We'll give them just a couple minutes. But before we do actually start, we can probably do a couple little intros here. So hi, I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Abram. I am your friendly neighborhood LaunchDarkly solutions architect.
Good.
What are we doing here today, Tom?
Well, so today, honestly, I'm a little bit mildly terrified because what we're going to be doing is partially vibe coding, but mostly manually implementing a couple different LaunchDarkly SDKs in different languages and connecting a whole bunch of dots. So this is a genuine look at what it takes to actually implement this sort of stuff. And this is something that, Abram, have you and I actually rehearsed this and done this before?
We have talked about it, but no, we are doing this live for real.
Exactly. So please feel free. I'm going to be in the hot seat. You're going to be looking at my IDE. So please tell me all of the things that I'm doing wrong. And then we'll be able to walk through and sort of debug and do all of the, you'll get to see all of the rough patches that we also go through as we implement everything. So
Yep.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and as we go in, obviously this is just, coding something up from scratch. We are doing the starting implementation on this. We're not getting into like the full enterprise grade patterns and that sort of stuff, which we would do if we were building something out for true enterprise scale here.
Yeah.
But we are still actually putting these things in and going to make them work. We're going to get the flags working. We're going to get our observability signals working. We're going to show how all of it ties together.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay, as we get rolling here, the overall plan is we've got two different categories of SDKs. I've got just a basic web application with a Python backend, which I've already gotten out of the way. I just spun up a little hello world. I used Claude Code for that. And I made sure that there are no import errors or anything. So it does a dev build, it does a production ready build. Cool. We've got that ready. So there's going to be two main things that we're implementing, I believe. One is feature management. Can I actually get some of the LaunchDarkly core feature management SDKs up and running so that we can do things like toggle things on and off, do a little bit of targeting, that sort of thing, both in React and in Python. And then the second category, outside of just feature management, is observability. So what we are going to do then is implement LaunchDarkly native observability, which is open telemetry based. And putting those two things together with the feature management and the observability, we'll be able to try to break some new functionality and have LaunchDarkly automatically roll it back. So yeah, we'll show you how all of that works. But that's the goal for today.
Yep. And so we are 3 minutes in here. Do we want to give folks maybe one more minute or just to see
Yeah.
who else pops in?
I think we should probably get started because this is going to be a little bit of a long one anyway, just timing wise. We kind of left this open ended because honestly, again, we're not entirely sure how long this is going to go. So it's scheduled for an hour. We will be recording it. We can send out recordings to everybody who attends. So thank you for those questions there. Appreciate the interest. We'll send them out very much afterward and you'll be able to catch up that way. But who knows? This could last for a couple hours. So, depending again on how slow and bad I am and how good Abram is able to make me. So if you do have to drop and come back later, please feel free to do that. Ask questions. We will be here. So
Yeah.
Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So let me walk you through, first of all, what I've already put together here. I'm just going to sort of do a little bit of commentary. So I started with Claude Code, which is my vibe of choice for creating just something from scratch. And I was just basically said, hey, create a React web application with a Flask Python backend and put in some error boundaries into the front end. That is basically all I did. So that allowed me to get a lot of the boilerplate out of the way. And then I've got a couple different tabs here. One is running the development build of the front end, and the other one is a little start script that I actually made sure was here to help smooth out some of the I don't know, the virtual environment. Do you have everything actually installed sorts of things? This is one of my favorite things to vibe code, by the way, is, hey, I've got a new project. I'm trying something out. Please make it easy for me to actually run this. So what that means then is what I'm able to do is just run this start script and it'll go through and be like, yeah, your Python backend already exists. We're going to start, Node. We're going to make sure everything builds and provide you all the links. So that's what's actually going on here. That this is the vibe coded app. I'm starting with very little, so it's just it is running both on. So this is hitting the same backend, but it is a development version and a production version. The reason for that is because there's some React dev error handling stuff where as I'm intentionally triggering some errors, this will gracefully handle it like it would in production, as opposed to in dev, it brings me to this. So, which helps for debugging, but yeah, I wanted to be able to do both here. So that's where we are. Abram, what else might be helpful to talk about? Is there, you can see I was messing with like import errors and everything else. What else are you curious about what I've got going on, or is that relatively clear?
That makes sense to me, and I think you're absolutely right. In my own experiments with vibe coding, how to best use Gen AI for code, I've definitely found that putting in some of the boilerplate glue, those start scripts, and just, when it gets to, okay, this is exactly what I want for business logic, that's usually a little more hands-on
Yeah.
sometimes. But when it comes to just getting those like little things out of the way, the little niceties that AI can generate really well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this makes sense to me. So, given that we now have just a basic app set up here, what do we want to add in next?
So what I would like to do, first things first, is to implement some front end flagging, right? Make sure that we've got the visuals there, and we might be able to hit multiple birds with one stone, because I think that we can probably implement the basic flagging SDK along with the observability SDKs. But should we start there?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah,
By
I've
the way,
definitely
I am
found.
using Cursor, and so as I start a chat or something, we can always try different, to try different AI providers as well, different LLMs. But we'll try to stay away from those as much as possible, and do things the real way and manually here. But if there's stuff that diverges too much from here, I might ask AI what it thinks about it, or if I'm running into a bug, something like that. So.
Mhm.
Okay, I also have a brand new LaunchDarkly project, and I've got the documentation open. So this is a totally blank slate that we can use to now play around. So what I'm going to do is actually start here, and it looks like I have some imports to do. So can you walk us through what these are?
Yep. So those three imports there are everything we need for LaunchDarkly, LaunchDarkly Observability, and Session Replay. So the first one is just the core feature flagging SDK. This is how we bring your feature flags and everything related to flags into your project. This is how you're going to be able to initialize to LaunchDarkly, get a set of flags, get their current values for your current front-end user. The second one there is observability. This is going to do things like scoop up all the core web vitals, error rate for the front end. And once we have the back end too, that'll all be stitched together into a nice trace showing front end to back end. The third one there is an optional piece of observability, which is session replay. So for anyone who hasn't used a session replay tool, it's going to capture a video-like experience of this user's session when they load it up. It's actually a DOM reconstruction, so it'll give us basically the full rundown of exactly what happened, showing the mouse movement and clicks and traces that are fired off for each of those.
Cool. I love it. Okay, so let's. I'm just going to copy and paste directly here, and we will start with basic, like out of the box configuration, and then we'll, from there, we'll be able to get into some other manuals. Oops, that's npm installs. So what I'm actually going to do here is make sure that these are actually installed here instead. So how about, tell you what, on this one, I'm just going to open up a new tab that is not actually running something, and we'll make sure we get those installed. Love it. Found 0 vulnerabilities. That's the number that I like to see. Perfect. And now there's a couple ways that we can initialize this. Yeah, a couple ways we can initialize this as a general recommendation. So I know this part. Async with LD provider in general, I think is the right way to go. There's some smart caching that can happen here. And essentially what this will do is make sure that you're non-blocking as you're initializing the LaunchDarkly SDK. So that's usually the way that I like to do this. So I'm going to actually do my imports here. We can more or less kind of go line by line. This part's not too crazy. And there we are. All right. So we've got those. And there's I'm going to be honest, there's some React stuff with like render slash create root and everything else that I don't always know what the appropriate way to go about it is, because this one just has render and then get a document by ID versus React DOM create root. So I don't remember which one is the most up to date one. So I'm just going to start with everything above that. And then we'll see if it's able to actually render here, and we can always fix that as we go. So copy paste. Cool. We have LD provider, and we're going to be awaiting this LD provider to actually initialize it, which means that we can start to render without, because this will happen async in the background. And the thing that I think I need here is a client side ID. Now, I do already have that copied. I can show you where to find that in the LaunchDarkly UI, but I don't think that's the interesting part. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and paste this in. By the way, for any sorts of like secrets that I'm generating or anything, this is just a little demo application. So if you want to steal it, like go ahead and try. But we're gonna be deleting a lot of this stuff right afterwards, so it's not going to do anything for you. But yeah. So I'm going to not obfuscate some things that otherwise might be sensitive. This one is never sensitive, though.
Yeah. The server-side SDK key is a private thing that you don't want to share out in the wild. Don't hard code it into your repos. Client side is fine to expose, no big deal.
Oh, that's right. I need to, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do this, not a secret. And I should probably just paste this on up here. Anyway, so that's that. Cool. This should now, not quite yet, but what I need to do now is exactly this. Thank you, AI, for taking the words right out of my mouth, which is essentially, instead of just rendering the app, we are wrapping the LaunchDarkly provider around that application. Now, something is going on here. I think I probably am just like missing a bracket somewhere. So I'm pretty sure, let's see, this is going to be closing out that one, which means we then need to add all this good stuff here. I'm pretty sure is what we got to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just add this line 30, if I can actually grab it, and then we should be good to go. Sweet. So now that's all closed out. Let's see if it still runs. And it's still going just fine, except for this one, which I had intentionally done an error before. Use state. This might actually be the thing that I was running into before. So let's actually see what this is doing. So I'm going to run this again, npm start, and then we'll see how that actually goes. Yeah. Use the 3001. Thank you. And this might be okay. So it is actually doing use state from somewhere. This might be one of those times where we just vibe code out the error and see actually what's going on. So getting this when running the dev server, please explain, but don't make changes yet. And this is honestly one of my favorite parts about vibe coding. It's just like, again, don't tell me exactly how you want to fix it, but explain to me what is going on, right? So let's see what it's actually doing. Do you have any ideas before it actually gets going? I probably just did something a little wrong in the initialization here.
Possibly. So the use state bit is I think that's in app.js, but
we've got React installed in two different locations. Okay, so it's something along these lines. We need to consolidate all React related dependencies into one location. Yep. So just a dependency thing, not a LaunchDarkly thing. And that is, so we'll trust Cursor. We'll trust Claude 4.5 to actually fix this for us. Now, what's happening here as it's actually working on it? Can you tell me, like, we talked about line by line here, the client and then the context. Can you tell me about so we've got a new observability, new session replay. What is this doing, and how does LaunchDarkly then know where observability and session replay is going to go? Like how does that sort of work?
So the way it works is, that whole initialization there, like you said, we pop in the client side ID. That's how we know what project and what environment we're talking to.
Yep.
Right here when this initializes. The context, you always need a context. This is just the information we have about the current user or session or device or whatever the data model is, but we always need a context kind and a context key, and we have some starter sample stuff in there. The plugins there, new observability, this is also piggybacking off of that client side ID there. So it's going to know where to pipe the observability data to, the correct project and the correct environment there. And session replay, without any other options put in for session replay. It's simply going to start recording the session when this application loads up. There are some other things you can put in there to say like, delay recording, only start it when I manually trigger the start of a session recording. You can put in some stuff there to say, don't record everything, please obfuscate sensitive details, or obfuscate everything on screen so all your text gets scrambled, but you can still see the elements that are there. But as it is, this is just the basic fired up.
Cool. I love it. By the way, in the background, I'm pretty sure we're good to go. So the whatever React rendering something that was going on is fixed. So good job, Cursor. So we should be ready to keep rocking and rolling. So we've got a LaunchDarkly SDK ready to go. We've got some observability. We've got some session replay, which means now I want to. There's a couple things that I want to do. Number one, I want to implement some flags. Number two, I want to then keep track of different sessions and make sure that some data is actually coming in. So what I might do here is take one of the existing components, or maybe I could just vibe code up a fancy new component, see what AI thinks that I should put on here, and then we'll manually implement LaunchDarkly afterward. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah, I think that's great. That way we can just show, hey, we've put in some itty bitty new feature here, but we are going to wrap it in a flag. So that way we can selectively release it when we want to.
Fancy new widget. Be sure that it's extra fancy. There we go. We're going to create a fancy new widget. I'm curious to see what Claude actually does for the fancy widget.
Like, what does a robot think is fancy? That's
exactly. Yeah. I know what I think is fancy, but 3D effects, particle animations, and interactive features. Incredible. So this is going to be my challenge to myself is, am I going to be able to figure out with this extra fancy widget how to wrap a flag around it? So that's going to be our challenge, right? So first we'll create the fancy widget and then we'll see what it does. It wrote 190 lines, which, by the way, God, writing new lines of code has now just been trivialized for stuff like this. I think one of the fun problems to think about as an industry at this point now is, what does this do to the rest of the process, like testing and QA and for static code analysis, even things like deployments and pre-prod environments that you might have going on. Like if we're pushing more changes and more lines of code everywhere, it's like we're putting more items on the conveyor belt, and the conveyor belt wasn't designed to hold that many items. So
yeah. One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is when you're doing like code path analysis, is be like, hey, when we're doing code coverage for our tests, are we covering all these different possible code paths and doing that instrumentation? And I would be very curious to see what the average coverage ends up being after, AI generates a bunch of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. What's the code coverage? And there's some really interesting solutions out there that are doing things like automatically capturing DOM movements by your dev and QA teams and auto-generating tests based on those. So like stores all of that stuff in its own database, and then auto-generates tests that you've got like complete test coverage without having to manually write tests. That's an area that I think is going to be really good. Or like even or even, just writing tests in plain language rather. Oh my God, that's so fancy. Okay, great.
Woo,
what does this do?
Effects.
It's active. What? It's such a fancy widget. Oh, I love it. Okay, amazing. Great. So anyway, yeah. There's a lot going on there. This is incredibly fancy. AI did such a good job. Now, for whatever, I probably need to then restart my build, don't I? So that one's in the front. That's the dev build. Great. And let's also then make sure that now I'll just start with dev right now, and we can restart production once we're ready and restart that build. So I'll stay right here. What a fancy widget. It did a good job. So let's see what we're actually working with here.
Yeah.
Fancy widget. Keep it all. And here, essentially what I want to do is I want to wrap all of this in a feature flag, right? So what I'm actually returning is going to be this thing, and I'm going to be exporting this fancy widget so that it can actually be imported in my main application, which is now, it's got an error boundary around it already. It's going to be rendering this fancy widget way up at the top. So perfect. Yeah. Looks good to me. Let's go back. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, given that all of that is in fancy widget JS there, for this example, I think we're just keeping the whole widget as a piece here. We can probably just wrap a flag around it in app.js, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we could, yeah, wrap it around in app.js, but first, in order to be able to, oh, I see what you're saying. So put the flag in app.js, don't put the flag in fancy widget.
Right, right.
Oh,
Just
sure.
where we're actually rendering it.
Yeah, we can do that. Not a problem. So I think here, probably what I want to do is this import with LD consumer, right? And
Hmm.
then I think what's going on is we're going to be initial. Well, so this is in a accessing the flag values within a particular component, right? So this isn't like an app.js. So can you tell me how can I do that in app.js? What do I do?
Well, actually, before we get to that part, I'm just curious here. It's been a little bit since I've done React with flags here.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a hook version, or are we just using the with consumer version here?
So this
Uh,
is the with LD consumer version. There are some others that we can use, like there are React hooks, or you can access the underlying JavaScript
oh yeah.
SDK, which is somewhere in there. So it's also in the docs. But yeah, for this version of it, tell you
Okay,
what,
we'll
just to
just go
keep
with
it
this one.
very docs centric, why don't we just import it at the
Sure.
component level? Should be easy enough. And
Yep.
then and then we'll just be able to pop that on over and use it in app.js, which
Perfect.
will render regardless. So
So we'll grab that. That will essentially give us access to the LaunchDarkly SDK in
yep.
a particular component. And then we'll have access to both the flags that are being brought into the application on initialization. It'll also give us access to the underlying LD SDK if we need to, the LD client there. You can see that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that it gives us access to as part of the props.
Yeah. So we've already got fancy widget defined as a constant here. So what I actually want to do is make sure that I've actually got the props here, and then I'm getting into fancy widget itself. So we're going to do this. Did I? Whoa! Thank you AI for all of the auto complete stuff. And I've got a little bit of duplicative. There we go. That should be good enough where now I'm able to actually access flags and LD client and everything else. So now what I need to do is actually in the return statement, I believe, I need to access some flag. So first, what I've actually got to do is define a flag. Now we do have an MCP server to be able to do this, but I'm just going to do it the manual way, just that we can actually see what this is. This is going to be a fancy widget, which you will notice the key here is in a kebab case, and React doesn't always like that. So I'm going to show you something actually that happens here. We're just going to do a release flag, available versus unavailable. Should be fine.
Before you hit that create button, I'm going to be that stickler for best practices and say we should have a verb in that name. It should be release fancy widget.
Release fancy widget. I'll even do capitalization just for you. So
Wonderful.
we're going to do the verb release fancy widget. And this then, so tell you what, I'll even do release fancy widget here over in the key. So perfect. I like it. Keep the sticklerish coming. One thing that for some reason out of the box that we don't actually do is you see the SDKs using client side ID. There are some flags that you might want to make available on mobile versus versus front end JavaScript like we're doing here versus backend SDKs. All flags are always available in backend SDKs. They're not all appropriate for client-side environments, right? That are insecure or just don't. It's not relevant for them. So one thing you can do is make sure that that box is checked by default. Otherwise, I just check it right here. So I think that I was using my test key. Here's my client-side ID. I'm just going to check in my little notepad up here. Yep, I sure was. Okay, cool. So here's release fancy widget, and I can almost guarantee you that that React is not actually going to like it when I put this kebab case thing in here. You'll notice that my dev test flag is actually in camel case. And so I'm going to actually like just copy this for right now, actually with the question mark. And here we go. And that actually goes, yeah. So we want to return that.
Yeah, so this is
Okay.
where if we actually just want to render the widget, we probably want to put this in app.js instead. So we can just simply have that statement saying, if the flag is on, render the thing. If the flag is false, don't render the thing.
Sure. Oh yeah. So you're suggesting actually put it here instead.
Yes, that would be my suggestion.
Oh, okay. So should we change this then to a constant, or what should we do?
Oh, so in this case, I think the stuff we did to bring in the LaunchDarkly stuff that we have over there, yeah,
Hmm.
bring the props and with consumer, all that stuff. Yeah, I think we
Great.
can put it here in app.
Cool. I can do that. So it's slightly different
Yeah,
syntax.
and you could change this to const instead of function just to keep the syntax the same.
Sure. I'll leave it as what it thinks right now. We'll see
Yep,
if it gives us problems, and we can always come
let's
back
see.
to it. So let me also get rid of the stuff that I was doing in Fancy Widget. So get rid of all that. Okay. Yeah. No imports, nothing. Great. Fancy Widget, are you still working? Fancy Widget still working. Make
Hmm.
sure. Yeah, great. We still have a fancy widget. I love it. So that means then in app.js, now we're going to be passing the logic in here and relying on the LaunchDarkly client for with LD consumer. So that means then for my return flags that dev test flag, get on over to cursor. Man, I'm not used to working on one monitor. Let me tell you.
Oh, I know it's so tough, right?
Yeah. So flags, dev test flag. Well,
So
and
actually,
actually, I don't want to actually return this here. What I want
no,
to
no,
do
we just want to
is,
wrap that specifically around that section with the whole block there with the error
yep.
boundary and the fancy widget. Yeah, exactly their suggestion.
Okay, great. But however, now I've got all sorts of linting errors. Whoopsies, and I accidentally pushed the wrong button. So in other words, we're using dev test flag here, and it's gonna
There we
wrap.
go. Yeah.
But this to me is not actually showing any sort of conditional logic, right?
Well, this
Because
is actually so React is funny this way, right? If we're dealing with just JavaScript, we're saying, or most of the language, we're going to have just a, if the flag, do the thing. In this case, we're using, I forget what it's called, logical shortcutting or something like that. Someone in the comments correct me on the actual term here, but we're simply saying, so flags dot, we're going to put in the correct key for the flag here. And if that value is true, then it will render the second part of the block here by using the logical and. If the flag is false, then we no longer have a valid and here, and it will not render it. That's kind
perfect.
of
So it just
React
renders
shorthand.
essentially like just a blank div or something.
It just won't run that code block at all, essentially. So
Oh, cool. All right.
theoretically, let's find out. Let's find out if we did this right.
That's a runtime error. So cannot this property is okay. Render with hooks. So it does say that it doesn't like this for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why. But maybe this could be a thing where I'm gonna try this. Let's just see. Let's try turning the flag on. Oh, and I would have to rebuild in production, but we might be able to do something. Nope. So it doesn't like it. Do you have any ideas why before we throw it over to
Let's see.
AI?
So cannot read properties undefined.
Tell you what, I'm going to have you
Let's
race
find out.
this.
Mm.
Oh, and actually, I'm just going to start a new chat so that it doesn't think that it's wrong with the widget itself. We're getting this. There we are. So just to walk through, so we're doing flags, and then we're referencing the flags. We're looking for release fancy widget, and then it's got this fancy React specific type syntax here, which is still a mystery
You
to
know what?
me.
I think we skipped a step here because you'll notice on line 8 it's saying we're not using with consumer yet. So we're not
Ah,
flags is not. Oh yeah, there we
oh
go.
yeah, we're not using with LD consumer. So okay, so stop. Oh, you can see the issue. It's there we go.
Yep.
That makes a lot
Hmm.
of sense. So
Yep.
this is what you beat the AI. It got there like just after you did. So
John
in other
Henry
words,
moment. I'm still out here with my shovel against the steam engine.
exactly, or the whole sledgehammer thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Sledgehammer, there we go.
there you go. Yeah, building the railroad or
Yeah.
whatever that is.
Okay. So what this is actually doing now is it's saying we are wrapping our export, the app function, using with LD consumer. So that way we're using that higher level wrapper that we put in the beginning. It's now sending the appropriate props into the app here that we can then consume to actually get our flag values.
Cool. Yes. Perfect. Okay. Got it. So now I'm expecting this to work immediately, and I accidentally pop that out into its own window somehow. Okay, great. So I've got my fancy widget. That's good. What if I turn this off then? Because I had this unavailable. that should, great. Now it's gone. And it is
Hmm.
respecting the flag here, right? So that
Yep.
as soon as here, I'll even put this like side by side. If I have no idea how this is going to render, but if I turn this on, then in theory, we should have an ultra
Yeah.
fancy widget. And if I turn this off, then we should no longer have an ultra fancy widget. So
Yeah.
cool. Great. It's listening to the flag. I like it. Um,
I think at this point, now that we have flags working, we have all that, we should see if the rest of our LD stuff is working, i.e. the observability, see if we're getting those signals
yeah,
back up here.
let's do it. So I'm going to turn this on so that the fancy widget is still there.
Hmm.
And what I would like to do then, actually, you're probably right. We should split this out. That's a different thing. So what we should do here is we should now go ahead and there's a couple things actually that I want to see. I want to see live events just to make sure, see how things are going. So we're looking in the test environment, and then as I start this up, as I restart it, we should be sending some events, I believe. Yeah, so here we go. We're getting we're getting some summaries for like saying this specific fancy widget evaluated as true, and it
Hmm.
evaluated as true for a particular user. We're getting some telemetry data in here already, which is great. First
Wonderful.
contentful paint, time to first byte, and
Mhm.
it. So it looks pretty good. What else do you want to see?
Yeah. Well, since we are getting those metrics coming in, we could take a look over at the actual session in progress here. We could take a look at those early logs
Ooh.
and traces.
All right. Give me a second. I'm just going to clean up my windows, and there
Hmm.
we go. So we have some sort of. It's funny that it's showing me all the things that I was doing before on the dev mode. I like that. So yeah, that's me debugging, and
Yeah.
oh, here we are. Now we can
Yeah.
see that we've got no fancy widget.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool. It's
We can also see that we've got by default, because we didn't pass in any other options to session replay, data obfuscation is on 100% here. It's basically saying scramble all text on screen to make
oh
sure there's
sure,
no sensitive stuff coming back. So
cool.
including all of the errors.
Including all of the errors. That's also sensitive information by default. I love it. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we're able to see that in real time. That's pretty neat. And live mode. So then I could do something like, go click over there and see it appear over here. That'd be pretty neat. Okay, cool. So here's what I think we should do. We have now our fancy widget, which is, I don't know why I've opened too many tabs already. So we've got our fancy widget. Fancy widget is running. Something that I think would be neat to do now at this point is to be able to actually change the session replay so that it's not obfuscating all of that data.
Yeah. So do you happen to have the docs on that up, or should we go find it?
I think we can probably find it. Observability SDKs. Here's React Web SDK observability. Well, actually, we should do JavaScript, or is it in React specifically?
Honestly, I would just type session replay into the search bar.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, that's fair. Session replay. So configuration for session replay. Look at that.
Yeah.
Easy. Okay. So React Web. Here's a React Web code example. So this is very similar to what we did before. We've got with LD provider, we used async instead of just synchronous here. But
Mhm.
then there's a couple configuration items. Enable canvas
Yeah.
recording,
I don't think we need any of those ones, to be honest.
sampling
Let's
strategy.
find,
Okay.
so that's manual starting. We don't care about that.
Manual
Let's
starting and stopping, get recording
um,
state, session properties. So what is so I know that there's a privacy
yeah,
aspect to it, right? Privacy
yeah,
setting.
there we are. Okay.
So there's a default strict or none. And for this, I want to go with none. So
Hmm.
yeah. So can you walk us through a little bit like what did these actually mean for session replay?
Yeah. So the default setting here is, hey, we're just going to essentially run a regex to see if we think that this is PII, personal information, or anything else that we classify as sensitive. But it is just our best attempt at that. So if you are working in a situation where you absolutely cannot have any possible information shown, you set it to strict. If you are not worried about information and you're just saying, hey, just capture everything, set it to none. So right now we're running on default because we don't have anything configured here. And we're
Mm.
just going to set it to none for our example.
Sure. So with default, it looks like, yeah, there's some. By the
Mhm.
way, I have been saying regex for years because, like, for whatever reason, that feels better to me. But it
Fair,
is
fair.
regular expressions, right? So why would it not
Yeah,
be regex?
but you
You,
know what? There's still holdouts out there who say GIF for when it's
exactly. Yeah, I'm a
graphic.
GIF person, so
Yeah.
like I'm being inconsistent. I'm going to change it to regex actually. So thank you for changing my life. If I take nothing else out of this, that'll be good. Okay, so privacy setting is what I want there,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm going to do. So let me go back to the actual React side of things, and I think then all I've got to do is put in a little bit of this, right, and just set
Yeah.
privacy setting to
So
none.
new session replay, pass in an object literal, and
And it'll be
privacy settings.
privacy setting
I can't remember
none.
if it's an S or S
Well, I did
or
a copy paste, so let's
oh,
double
okay.
check.
Okay. Good, good, good. Yeah. I wasn't sure if that was
Privacy
automatic.
setting to
Wonderful.
none.
Wonderful.
All right, cool. Yeah, so should be able to do that. Except I probably need to turn that into a string, don't I? There we are. It knew. It knew that I wanted that as a string. So let's make sure that we didn't break anything. All right, and I think we're good. Cool. Activate. Unactivate. So next time we come in here, we might be able to see some new, unobfuscated information.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool. That new widget is really fancy. I agree. Sweet.
So
So where are we now? So we did a front end flag. I don't think we're completely done with this. There's some extra stuff that we could do context wise, right? So like
yeah.
something that we could do is to re-randomize and generate like new user information every time using like a faker library or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not a production level type of implementation because
Yeah.
in production you probably this context should be consistent on a user by user basis so that like when they
Right.
log in on one device versus another device they're getting the same experience because it's the same user that's being derived from your own like user store.
Exactly.
But here we could re-randomize every time and that probably wouldn't be a big deal. Do you agree with
So
that?
yeah, I think actually most of our SDKs require a key. That is the kind of the
Sure.
mantra. You always need a kind and a key. JavaScript is the outlier because we know we deal with a lot of anonymous users. So if you do not input a key, I think the JavaScript SDK will automatically generate one and stick it in local storage for us.
Yeah, but then I'd have to like use a cashless browser. I don't want to deal with that. So to be honest, so honestly, what I might do is I'm just going to tell Cursor to do it. So
Go
in
for it.
index.js, please use faker library to randomize the key name and email every time the app is reloaded. Well,
Yep.
it'll figure it out. It'll figure out what we're doing here. But
Mhm.
so that way we're just going to re-randomize this every time. And that means that if I want to start something like a 50-50 split, for instance,
Yep.
then congratulations, we're going to get a new user every time. And we can just make sure that that's actually working.
Yep.
So it looks like it is doing some console commands.
Mhm.
I'm so glad that I personally am not responsible for production level stuff because I would get myself in trouble so quickly by letting AI just run wild on that. But okay, perfect. So it is using Faker. Now it's going to create a brand new UUID and full name and email and everything there. So that means then, in theory, I think if we go back and I don't think I need to restart it on at least on my dev server here.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you just hit refresh a few times to generate some new user connections.
yeah. But what I want to do is instead of having it just available for everybody, how about I do a manual
Uh,
percentage right now? And we're just going to do it 50-50 based on
mhm.
that user key, which if I'm correct, we're going to be getting a new key every single time.
Yep.
So that'll work. And so about 50% of the time we should be seeing the fancy widget versus not seeing the fancy widget. So there we go. Yep. I'm hitting refresh, refresh, refresh. And
Yep.
it is inconsistently showing roughly 50% of the time. We're getting a couple streaks of it
Yep.
showing or not, but that's about 50%. So
Yep. So under the hood, every time the page reloads here, LaunchDarkly is reinitializing. We're saying, hey, I am user ABC123. Okay, you're being bucketed into the 50% off group. Oh, you're user XYZ456. You're in the 50% on group. So we are just bucketing each new user. And obviously, we are randomly generating them each time. But if this was a returning user, they would consistently stay in their bucket unless we have adjusted settings here in LaunchDarkly.
Exactly. Yeah. So this part is consistent based on that user key. It's just for our own purposes, we are recreating and essentially re-randomizing because we're changing that user key there. So yeah, cool. I love it. I think we're off to a good start here. So we've got a couple paths that we could go. Number one is that we could start working on the back end a little bit, right? So that we're getting full stack of observability and even doing things like randomizing request by request. Is there anything else that we'd want to do in the front end just to validate that things are working pretty well? Like anything else? Was I seeing some? Oh, hey, my errors already showed up, so that's good. Do I have some logs here? I do. Great. So I'm getting logging. I should actually, yes, I do have some traces, but this won't be full stack traces, right? Yeah, because we haven't done anything in the back end. What else? What else are we missing here, Abram? Like, are we in a pretty good spot?
I think we're in a pretty good spot, to be honest. I mean, we're probably going to see just that one user session for now because we're just kind of refreshing the same page. And the way that our user session picks it up is if you have a connection coming in from the same URL, I believe, it'll just kind of keep stitching it together, you know, if it's within a certain amount of time. If we went dormant for a few hours and then came back here, it would start a new session.
Sure.
But because we're just kind of doing the same thing, we have the dev version, the test version.
I can always open up a different browser or something too.
Like that's. But in the meantime, I think that this is exactly what we expect to see.
So I had never actually tested this. Do you remember when I resized my browser a little while ago?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that it caught that. I learned something new today. That's pretty cool. And then did it also? Hey, look at that. So this is where it was obfuscated before. See all the like gibberish that shows up here, where it's just, you know, totally obfuscated stuff that happens at the client itself, right? So it's not actually sending LaunchDarkly anything sensitive. But then, hey, we unobfuscated that, and everything is because we changed the privacy settings. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, that was easy. I was actually thinking. So there are some ways. Oh, thank you, Mac OS. There are some ways that you can do things like put recording errors in the error boundary, but it looks like we are already capturing those automatically. So I think that by making sure that the LaunchDarkly SDK is already initialized at that app level, then what we're able to do is it's already capturing that stuff because it's already like the error boundaries or those components are within the app where LaunchDarkly SDK already exists. Am I understanding this correctly?
I think so. I think being able to use LD observe there, record error, that's if we want to say like, okay, we hit a specific error boundary. We want to kind of tag this error with some extra metadata so that when we see it on the LaunchDarkly side, basically doing it as a slightly more manual process because there's extra stuff we want to do with it.
Sure.
We're just letting it run.
So we could get a little bit more targeted and like, you know, we could add some extra stuff here in the error boundary definition, right? For which component did catch, I think is where it says to have it do. Yeah, component did catch, and then we could just pop this on in. So, you know, I mean, honestly, while we're here, why not?
Sure. Go for it.
I'm just going to put this in here because, you know, I just want to see what happens. So, we probably are going to need to import LaunchDarkly observability for that too. Not a problem. I can do that. So there we are. Okay, great. Let's just see how this works on the dev server. Are we good? Yeah, sweet. All right. So now we've done both implementations. I don't think we're going to get duplicative data, I believe, but who knows? Might get a little extra something there. So
I think our backend is pretty smart about stitching all of that together.
Yeah. That's the idea. Cool. So should we switch over to Python?
Let's do it. Now, of the two of us, Tom knows Python way better than I do, so I'm mostly going to be heckling and talking about the general patterns here, and Tom's going to be more in the weeds on the specifics.
You got to lower that bar, my friend, because I know how to hack away at Python, and I think the syntax is so much easier than JavaScript. I mean, like you saw, I still get confused about stuff like this because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you want to execute this or not, just with an and whatever, you know. But then again, I suppose Python has stuff like if this thing, and then you just go. So it's similar, right?
Python is, I honestly think, like the closest to just general human readable like English language of all of the actually used coding languages, not just like, like a
Yeah.
teaching sort of thing.
I agree. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got. So in the front end, I don't think Fancy Widget it's actually making any back end calls. I think that was purely client side. But
Hmm.
stuff like buggy component, so this, yeah, that's going to be throwing that there too. But I know that users, for instance, these are going to be fetching. Yeah, so this is going to be fetching stuff from the backend API. So
Hmm.
this is probably some place where we could generate some of those intentional errors and see some full stack observability, because this is actually going to be grabbing that data from the backend. Which, speaking of, in the backend, I've got a very simple Flask app that's set up. So it's got some just like generic user info. When you ask for that, it's going to be JSONifying it. This is what's great about Python. It's just going to be JSONifying the users and displaying those and just returning it. So this is that app route that then is getting rendered in a nice way for the front end, right? So if we added to that data, then obviously it would change a little bit, but yeah, we would be able to just even add, I don't know, add a fourth one there. Oh my gosh, we've got so many users. Honestly, that
10.
is such an AI thing where it's like, hey, do you like users? How about 17 more of them? I recognize patterns and I can do that over and over again. Okay, cool. So we got users. So here's what I want to do is I want to import the LaunchDarkly SDK in my app here. So I'm going to do a similar sort of process, which is in Python. Let's make sure that we are getting this actually installed. And there you'll see, similar to React, there's a core LaunchDarkly feature management SDK, which allows us to do conditional logic, right, based on some sort of flag state, and then an optional observability plugin. So what I'm going to do first is let's actually make sure that these are installed in that virtual environment. So where am I? What is my life? What have I got going on here? Okay, great. Cool. I'm actually just going to just start from here. We're going to go to the back end and initialize. There we go. So we've got our virtual environment. This is one thing that I think JavaScript does really well, is just make sure that virtual environment is like the default thing, as opposed to like juggling between virtual environments and like globally installed packages. Like, I understand that there's stuff that you would want to reuse and
Yeah.
that, but I don't know. It still results in all sorts of conflicts. So first things first, what have I got here? I'm going to do pip3, thank you, instead of just pip, and LaunchDarkly server SDK. And I think that it was correct that I also probably wanted LaunchDarkly observability. So pip3 install LaunchDarkly observability. Sweet. So we should have that now in the virtual environment. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but if you'll notice, actually, I'm just going to pause here for a little bit. So it's using a lot of open telemetry instrumentation from the common, like, open telemetry is an open source, like standard vendor agnostic type of instrumentation here. So there's a lot of overlap, I would say, because this is all very much OTel based. So that should be good.
Yeah.
At this point, let's see.
For anyone who's watching and thinking, but we're already using OTel, do I have to do this? These are just like handy pre-built wrappers on standard open telemetry libraries here. If
Yes.
you're already using OTel, if you've already got a collector or something like that, you can configure the collector to also send the appropriate data to LaunchDarkly. This is just kind of the easy route, especially if you just want to say, hey, give me the pre-configured thing so I can just drop it in.
Yeah. So like we just have an OTel endpoint essentially where we can capture the stuff,
Right.
and some recommended configuration on that. So yeah, good point. Good point. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to import the LaunchDarkly client, and then I'm going to also import config just to make it easier to access. That works for me. So here we go. Import LaunchDarkly. There we are. We should be good. And LD client is, not accessed. That's fine. It might have said something about not resolved. I find that cursor is, and maybe this is an overall VS Code problem, sometimes it doesn't actually recognize that you've now installed these things in the virtual environment, or it could just because like I don't have I may be using a different virtual environment, which it looks like it's having a tough time right now. So I'm just going to not worry about that. And I'm going to keep using my my terminal instead. So yeah, yeah, we're going to ignore the in IDE interpreter for right now. So this means then that I should be able to switch some sort of backend logic based on a flag here in the backend as well. But first things first, I've got to initialize the client. So let's do that. So I'm going to ignore observability for right now. I think for right now, I'm just going to do, well, no, we might as well do both at the same time. Why not?
Yeah, we can just go ahead, get it all done.
Get it all
And
done.
there's kind of no reason not to just go ahead, do the observability piece now, do all our imports, and then we'll show how it actually gets set up as we
Sure.
do the init here.
Yeah, that sounds good. By the way, oh man, I should have done this. Just maybe if it was closer to April 1st, what is it? Something that we should have done is I should have made my IDE like the synthwave 1984 version where it's all glowy and everything. I'll keep that in mind for next time.
Excellent.
Okay, great. So this is now the next thing that we got to do, which is we're going to take the LaunchDarkly client, set some configuration for it. Part of that configuration is the SDK key. This is a secret, but I'm going to show it on stream because this is a total garbage, like not at all real environment. But essentially, what's going to happen here is as we initialize the SDK, it's going to grab all of the rules that I have defined in all of my flags. So like when we were looking at the flag here, it'll know that release fancy widget is set to 50% available, 50% unavailable. So that sort of stuff is all you'll have access to if you steal this. So, have fun if you want, but otherwise, just know that this is a secret in any sort of production setting, right? And then this is the sort of thing that you would set with an environment variable and then just pass in. So,
and to be totally explicit, the reason that the client side one is not secret and the server side one is, client side, you're getting a much more limited set of information. You're just getting
yep,
only the flags that have been checkboxed to ship to client side and only their current values for that contextual user. On the server side, you're getting the full set of flags and all of the rules for decisioning. So client side decisioning happens on the LaunchDarkly backend.
exactly.
Server side decisioning happens in your code because you're dealing with tons of concurrent connections. So it has to be able to, make decisions like that.
100%. So a way that I like to put it for people is like if I'm targeting Bill at Gates.com, and also wanting to make sure that I'm setting a specific variation for like a list of sensitive people. We've got like who else is a good person? The Pope Vatican. So any sort of sensitive list where you might want to say if you're in this list, or if you're a VIP user, or if you're a high net worth user, whatever those sorts of things are, you don't want to expose this logic to your end users, right? So like they should not be able to see this in an insecure environment like a browser where you can push F12 and just inspect whatever's going on. So instead, the only thing the client sees is like, oh, this is true for me, or I'm getting that variation or whatever, as opposed to the server side, which has access to all of this business logic, because that's in theory a secure environment. So that's why that SDK is secret.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the decision. That's why we built it this way. Honestly, I'm not here to trash talk anyone, but I think like all of our competitors, as far as I know, just ship.
Not all of them, but yeah, there are some that push all of the decisioning down to the client side. So
I'm just like mind blown. I can't imagine doing that.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we want to put this inside of the app. I'm fairly sure. So, okay. So what we're doing line by line here, I'm going to set my configuration for a specific SDK key. And then what I'm going to do is pop in the SDK key that I'm using in this project. And this is, I'm going to make this very clear. This is normally a secret. Yeah. Please don't steal it. Thank you.
It's really funny, that suggestion, don't commit to Git. I accidentally did that a few days ago. I was messing around with a different branch and I popped in a hard-coded SDK key, and then I accidentally reflexively went ahead and committed and pushed it, and I went, oh, shoot.
Yeah, we've all been there. It's a rite of passage.
I then went, okay, and I went and regenerated my SDK key to invalidate the old one. I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
Good job, Abram.
Dang, it got
Good
me.
job.
Thank you, code, code scanners. So,
Yep.
okay, great. So at this point, then here's what I want to do is I'm going to start very similarly as before, which is like have some sort of static context. And then eventually we'll be able to randomize that context in a smarter way. But I just want to like validate that this is working initially here. So I think we already imported the context. Let's double check. We did not. Cool. So what I'm going to do is we'll start with this import.
Yep.
Going over here. Bang.
The reason that we did not, I was going to say, in JavaScript, there's no like builder class for your context. You just build an object literal, you build the object and you use it. Most languages have a builder class that you're going to use. So exactly what Tom's about to put in here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when it gets back to where the decisioning actually happens, because in Python, the decisioning is happening all locally, right? The rules and the context are like meeting right here. And so you have to pass in a context every time because we assume that this backend API is going to need to be context aware and responsive to a particular like request that comes in, as opposed to like front end JavaScript is like, yeah, this is Tom right now. And sure, Tom might log out and Abram might log in, but that's not happening every time. So it's just like initialized with that overall context. So anyway, that's a rabbit hole that we don't probably need to get into right now. So for right now, I'm going to just do the static context here. Let's do that. Very good. Bang, we've got a context. We built it. Now we have a context object. Here's my context object. I love it. It's easy as that. And then we're going to do we're going to evaluate a flag. So again, I need a flag, which I've not yet actually created. But I think what I would like to do just to start with this is we will create a flag in LaunchDarkly, which actually one of the things that we could do is we could create one directly in here, but it's already connected to like my regular demo, my project. So I'm not going to reconfigure all that. So we'll just do that manually, pass in the flag here, and then we'll be able to evaluate it for that specific context. And that'll be that. So let's create that flag. And this time, what I'm going to do is to create a flag called configure user list. And the idea here in this case would be that we might want to configure the source of that user list, right? So like one data source might have one list, one data source might have another list. We might be doing some sort of like migration between where we're grabbing those user lists from. For right now, we're just going to hand wave a lot of that sort of stuff and instead just generate two different static user lists and see which one it actually returns, right? And that'll be a quick and easy sort of a visual way to validate all this. Now this, I'm going to once again just leave this as a Boolean flag. For everyone watching, of course, we can do like multivariate flags, strings, JSON, you name it. And in this, it doesn't really matter if it's available client side or not, but I'm going to just go ahead and check that anyway, just because, why not? We're here. So at this point now, I've got the flag, I've got my key, and I should be able to pop this in. So let's do that. Here is, bang, configure user list.
And here we can actually use the proper kebab case key. We don't have to transform it into camel case because we're not doing React.
Right. Yeah. React is weird. If you take anything out of today, it's that React is weird. So now this is where some of the Python stuff comes into play. If flag value, and it is implied that that the flag value, this is saying if flag value equals true, essentially, then we're going to do something. And so here is my user list 1. So great, I like that just fine. And then we can do an else statement and we'll have a separate user list. So tell you what, why don't I do this? And we're going to get rid of this one and make sure that this is explicitly clear. We are going to have a completely unique set of users.
Yes.
So that should be that. So I don't know why there's a comma at the end of this one, but maybe it doesn't care because normally, you don't use a comma on the last one, but whatever. As long as it doesn't care, then we're fine. So let's see this now. And we should be able to see we've got Diana Prince, Ethan Hunt, Fiona Green, and that should be static every single time. Because you'll notice one thing that we are not actually doing right now, we're actually sort of generating two separate users, one on the front end, one on the back end. And one thing that we could do here is to make that consistent and make sure that whenever we're evaluating it, or making an API call from the front end to the back end, we are using the user ID that is generated on the front end to make that request to the back end. That'd be a good way to go. But for right now, Diana Prince, Ethan Hunt. Isn't Ethan Hunt from Mission Impossible?
Impossible. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's
I
a good
think
one.
Diana Prince is Wonder Woman's
Oh
name.
my gosh, of course. Who's Fiona Green then?
I don't know. I
Oh
don't know
gosh,
Fiona Green.
I'm going to change one then. So we're going to do, instead of Bob, sorry Bob, you're getting shot. We're going to do Bill Bowbaggins instead. So there's going to be Bill. All right, great, cool. So one thing that I'm going to do just to make sure that it's a little less noisy for us visually here, I'm just going to turn off this fancy widget, get that out of the way for right now. And instead, so for this user list, currently it's unavailable. So we have this user list, great. And if we refresh, it's all, yep, that's fine. So if we turn this on, then we're going to be getting a different user list as returned from the backend, I believe. Maybe not. Ooh, okay. Mystery here. So I'm curious.
Let me go look at the Python again. I just want to take a look before we give it to our AI helper here.
Yeah, no, of course.
So we're saying if flag value. So if it's true, we should be getting Alice, Bill, and Charlie. So yeah.
Oh, I know.
Hmm?
Okay, here it is. We've got the logic being determined once on application startup. So the logic is up there. It is not actually within the users. So here's what we're going to do instead. Except we're going to have to like fix. There we go. There's some of the imports. So now what it's going to be doing is when you call the route, it's actually going to be evaluating the flag logic, returning one of these users, and then returning that as the JSON.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that's all it was. Is it was doing it once on app startup rather than every time. So there we go. We put it in the function itself, and now we're getting the new users. And if I turn this off, then the next time I ask the backend for that information, like probably by clicking refresh users, now it's getting the new one. So there we are. I just had the logic in the wrong place. So that's my fault.
Classic.
Classic. Yeah. We've all been there. So there we are. So essentially what we're doing here, just to summarize again, is in this specific route that the front end is calling API/users, we have this get users function. This is essentially just as performant as any other conditional statement that you have in your code, because we already have a context that's defined here. This is just like a static context. And so it's already got that locally. It also, because the SDK was initialized up at the top, it's already got all of the rules locally as well, which means then the context is asking for the rules for this flag, and it's just able to immediately resolve whether it's going to be sending back user list 1 or user list 2, and that's just instantly returning. So this really is not a performance hit whatsoever.
No, there's no like call out to LaunchDarkly, hey, please give me.
No,
it all happens right there in your app in memory. So it's
exactly super fast. Yeah, the API would break before the LaunchDarkly resolution would break for sure. So very good. That is not working. So here's where things can get a little bit more interesting, I believe, which is we can start to like randomly throw errors as part of this. So I already do have some trigger errors here built in, which will, obviously show me that React development sort of method of showing them. I think it would be nice, because we've already got the conditional statement in here, we could randomly start to trigger errors on a request by request basis for this particular call that is getting the user list. Do you think that's a good plan, Abram? I'm curious how you think.
Yeah, so if we wanted to do that, are we talking about throwing the error on the backend in Python?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, maybe just to kind of show more realistic, okay, we're developing an app, we put in some new thing, and the new thing is giving us some grief. When we serve that second list of users, maybe half the time it's going to throw an error or something like that? Or do you have a better idea?
Yeah, no, that sounds good to me. So there we go, ID 456. So very good. So this is something that we'd be able to pop in this else statement where we want more errors to happen there. Now, one thing that I'm going to do here is, in theory, when we are making this sort of request, we here, I'm going to make this even more realistic. We should be getting the exact same data back if we're simulating some sort of migration. And so right now, what we're doing is we are defining these users and just returning a statically defined list, right? But if this is actually, if we're pretending to get this from data source 1, versus if we are pretending to get this from data source 2, in theory, we want this to be the same data. And in some sort of non-functional change like that, like when I'm going from data source 1 to data source 2, and we think that they are fine and they are the same data, then what we can do is essentially re-randomize request by request rather than user by user. So for like a front-end experience, like if you remember my fancy widget, which I disabled for right now, if you have access to the new fancy widget and you're a returning user, you should be able to see it every time. It doesn't matter if I'm on mobile, if I'm logging on browser A versus browser B, anything like that. I should always have the same front-end experience, right, as a returning user. But if this is a like back-end data source migration or infrastructure level change, something like that is non-functional and non-visual to the user, where we think that this should be the same, but instead we're just testing for things like errors, latency, throughput, scalability, that sort of thing. Then measuring and re-randomizing request by request as we go through, that's a good way to go. And it actually protects your users, because that means then if they happen to get like the bad route last time as we were ramping this up, they can hit refresh and it'll re-randomize them. They might get the good route the next time. So it provides like really high cardinality, and we in theory are not going to be oh yeah, hey, failed to fetch, cool. So So in theory, then we should be able to just like have this not be be visible to them whatsoever, because that change is not visible. So the reason that I got failed to fetch is because guess what? We didn't actually have a context defined. So what I would like to do is context equals placeholder. Placeholder. There we go. So this is where I'm again going to do a little bit of vibe coding, and I'm just going to have this, have it put in the random UUID, whatever implementation is there. So in app.py, please change line 31 to generate a new UUID every time. There, cool. So let's do this. Import UUID. It's as simple as that. Thank you, Python. Okay, great. That's it. So instead of having to look up the specific syntax, like I knew that it was going to be easy, but that's fine. So what we did, we created a UUID. We have not yet actually created a LaunchDarkly context object.
Right.
So that's what we're going to have to do here. So I'm going to go back to my docs. Here they are. In the context builder, this is what we're going to be building for this particular kind. And the what we can actually do is we can create a new object, but specify the kind of context that we're actually going to be creating. And this will be request.
Right. Instead of.
And the key will be that UUID. So does this all make sense? Kind of what we're doing. We're essentially generate new request ID context for each request.
Yep.
Evaluate.
And I think it will also help us when we get to the next part here of saying like, okay, we're going to start catching these errors and seeing how they work. Doing it on a request by request basis makes a lot more sense than per user, because like I said, we're randomizing the data source on it.
Exactly. Yep. So cool. This should now actually render just fine. So I'm going to just refresh here. Oh, it's failed to fetch. I wonder why. Now I'm a little bit confused as to why this isn't working, because this should, I wonder. Okay. I think maybe what I did here, did I do something bad? I might have. So tell you what, I have another project that I'll be able to look at that will help me. Because I know syntax. So I'm starting a little script on my other side, and I'm going to pull it in here. So this is a little thing that I've used for years now, which is how can I create a new context? And so what I've done before, there we go, .set kind user. So this is the sort of syntax that I like to use. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this and pull that in instead. So request context equals, and we're going to do this. Okay, cool. So this now I'm going to pull this key on in, which is right here, string. Okay, pop it in there. The kind is going to be request. And then .build. What's going on with my indentation? Your guess is as good as mine. So we're going to delete this, and instead we're going to use this context. So very good. That should now hopefully work and be a valid context. And I don't know why the syntax was a little bit weird there, but that's okay. This is what today's all about. Hey, cool. Okay, that's what it was. It didn't like the context formatting for some reason. But there we go. We're still doing basically the same thing, which is this is the key, just new UID every time. It's the request kind, just that I know for my own benefit. And then I'm building it and passing that context in. And it should re-randomize every single time. Something that I would like to try is to just make sure that this is actually showing us appropriately, that that it's sort of generating those contexts and evaluating those flags every time. So I'm going to click this a couple times and just see those live events come in and see how that works. So refresh. Okay, cool. So now we are seeing request contexts. They are new UUID contexts every time. And it is going to be, right now it's evaluating as false. We could randomize this as like 50-50 again to see that, but these are all those contexts that have been coming in and evaluations that have been happening for them. So
I think this is also a good opportunity to go look at our traces again, just to see that back-end observability working, because I think we put that in, did we not?
Maybe, yeah. So we can give that a shot. We might want to wrap the route itself and make sure that is part of a trace, right? Because that's something that we generally have to do in a lot of backend observability, right? Is to specifically start a trace there. So or like essentially add it to a span, right?
I actually think that the Python SDK is going to do most of that for us. One of those get/all, the unknown service there, because it's not coming from the browser. So I think we are getting that route hit.
Oh yeah. So that is unknown service. That's actually something that we should do. Yeah. So it's unknown service.
We could name the service. Yeah. We in our LaunchDarkly observability initialization, we could name the service so it's not just unknown service.
Why don't we do that? We should probably do that.
Big options. Let's take a look.
Observability SDKs, Python. Cool. Let's get into it. So plugins. Yeah, there's that. There's the config. Here we go. Service name. Observability config. Let's do that. Cool. And that would be up here.
Yeah.
So we're going to call this Tom and Abrams. Incredible. User list service. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. I love that the autocomplete wanted you to go for Tom and Jerry. That made it for me.
Environment. This is my test environment. Cool. All right. There goes that. And then this is going to include that observability config. Cool. So now we have a service name. Now we have the config passed in here. So this will let us know, what service it actually is when we see Tom and Abrams' incredible user list service. Tom and Jerry, that would be a good one, but you'll have to do a name change. Okay, great. We should be in a good spot right now. And I bet that when we look at logs coming in just a little bit, detected change. Yep. Starting stream. So this was 1337. So that was just a few seconds ago. So it's like reloading. Oh, yeah, it's already here. So okay, great. That's the hotel service name is Tom and Abrams' incredible user list service. So great. It has worked. It's got the service version. It's got everything. Excellent. So
All right.
our original plan before we got sidetracked a little bit was we wanted to simulate some errors in this else statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So simulate, sure, slow data source, and then simulate, how about some errors?
Sure. Yeah.
So cool. There's two things now that we can measure. One of them is this request latency for like the speed, how fast is this going to be going? And then the other one is to simulate like if there is some sort of error that gets thrown. Now I've already got some error simulation down here. This was just vibe coded on in. And so what we would be able to do is like actually return this to the front end, and you know, based on the error type, it'll actually show that here. But I'm just going to manually do this. I think at this point to just manually track and throw some of those errors. What do you think? Should we just set up some spans? Should we set up some automated error handling? How would you go about this, Abram?
Yeah. I think we can keep things pretty simple, just like you were saying there. That makes sense to me.
Cool. All right. In that case, then I'm going to do so. Let's see. Start time equals time.time. And then, oh yeah, I suppose I could just do time.sleep5 and time equals time.time.
I don't even think, if I recall correctly from when I was working with the observability folks a couple weeks ago, I think the latency should now be automatically captured. We don't need the start time and the end time.
Oh, very
Let's
cool.
Give it a try. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, so that would be latency, like automatic latency.
Yeah, so it should just, as part of the auto instrumentation with Flask, it should just automatically, when it's capturing the span for this API call, note down the start and end time, and then we auto calc the latency on the back end.
Cool. I like it.
I think. Let's see if it works.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. 50% of the time. I'm going to simulate errors 50% of the time, and it's going to be slow. So now I wonder, there we go. If random.random is less than 0.5, thank you, AI, for making this sort of stuff really easy to do as well without me having to think. So very good. Cool. So now we are going to be randomizing this so that 50% of the time we're getting the new data source, 50% of the time we're getting the old data source. And what I think I might want to do is do data source just so that we can actually see is the new versus old data source. Then this one, the same thing, except this is going to be old data source. Sorry, this one's new, this one's old. So the old data source is good, the new data source is bad. That's what we're simulating here. Mm-hmm. So we should be able to see this as we reload. Actually, didn't even. Oh, it's working. Loading users. I'm going to have to speed that up a little
5 seconds. Bit. Yeah,
it took 5 seconds. So this is the new data source. Oh, interesting. Oh, and we had the error actually that happened.
Yeah,
as well.
So give us the error on the old one, probably. Oh, you're right. It randomly generated the error that time. You're right. No.
Yeah. So so we're gonna do like a 1 second instead, just to make our lives a little more sane. So here we go. So refresh. Yeah, error is so it failed to fetch that time. Yep. Failed to fetch.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So right now, the reason that this is happening every time is because we are currently serving this actually. Nope, I've got it backwards. So so here's what we did wrong. We've got if this is true, then we should be doing this stuff because this is the new data source, right?
Right.
And if it's old, then we'll be on if it's unavailable, then we'll be on the old data source. So yep. So this is the new one. This is where all the errors should be happening. This is the old one. This is where it's old and stable and still working just fine. So let's try that again. Make sure that we're good. Yep. Old data source is fine. So now as I change this to be 50-50, we should start seeing 50% of the time, it's going to be slow. It's going to throw some more errors as this actually happens. So let's refresh. Yep, there we go. Refresh again. and we are now randomizing on a request by request basis, and it's taking a lot longer for the ones on the new data source here. So let's refresh again until I make sure that I get the old.
I was gonna say, are we getting any of the olds? I'm not
I don't
sure.
see that actually. Yeah,
Why don't we
let's.
flip the flag all the way back to old just to be sure?
There you go. Yeah, back to totally unavailable. This is the old stuff.
Yep, okay.
Okay, yeah, no, that's working just fine. Okay, great. So let's just double check our logic here. So we are setting a new context every single time, a new request context, evaluating the flag for that, which will return true or false. And then if it's true, we're simulating a slow data source and simulating errors half the time, which we could have that happen beforehand just to make it quicker, but it doesn't matter. And if that happens, then we will raise that exception, that simulated error. Otherwise, after that 1 second, then we will return the new data source here. So let's make this even more obvious. New data source. And this will be the old stable data source. So there we are. We should be able to make that pretty easy. Mm-hmm. Unless I, did something wrong with the, so there's our error. I like it. There's still the new one. Let's wait until we get an old one. So I'm curious, did I do something wrong in the logic where for some reason it might be generating the same user every time? Or have I just gotten unlucky? I don't think so. Failed to fetch. Yep, that's expected. Still seeing only the new one.
New. Yeah. We definitely have a 50/50.
Oh,
because by user key.
Oh, it's by user key. Of course.
We should change it to request.
There you go. That's it. That's the one. So, this is again an honest look. This is the sort of thing that can happen as you're setting this up. So now it's by request key. Good catch. It's always something simple. So there's the new. Here's old. Oh, yep. Nope, that one was new. There's old.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay. Wait. So now we are properly randomizing because we've got the proper randomization unit.
Yep.
So
refresh.
So now that we have all this here, we've got our full stack application. We've got some new stuff, some old stuff happening. We've got the ability to flag, to use our flag to roll out this new feature, which is a little problematic. What stuff do we have built into LaunchDarkly that that can take advantage of the flag and the observability? Should we look at some rollout strategies here, or do we want to maybe look at the metrics that are generated, or we have a couple things we can do?
Well, so I've got actually one last thing that I think that we should do, which is that we want to actually record an exception with the observability SDK, right? So instead of just throwing the exception directly in here, we probably just want to actually record that exception as part of that process, right, with the observability SDK. So I think what I'm going to do here is
were we getting any errors showing up in our error tracking there on the LaunchDarkly side?
No, and the reason is because we haven't actually tied the LaunchDarkly observability into the existing into our. Yeah, we're not actually throwing anything for that observability. So tell you what, why don't we do this? I'm just going to do a little copying, and instead of just raising an exception and not doing anything with it, how about where am I? Who am I? Here we are. We're going to raise an exception. And what we're going to do, do that just simulated error. And this will be an exception every time. Then we will record that exception right here. So I'm just going to manually make sure that gets sent over to LaunchDarkly right now. So there we go. Failed to fetch. Wait, now I'm failing to fetch every time. Why would that be happening?
Let's go look at Python again.
Let's go look. Oh yeah, so we are doing some tracing here already. That's good. Oopsies, that's not what I want to do. We're not opening up my Gmail. Thank you very much. That's the wrong button.
Wrong tab.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. What I think that we want to do, try raise exception, yeah, because this will be the try except statement, and then it'll raise an exception every single time. It should pass in that simulated error as part of that exception, and then record that error exception. So did I change the logic at all? No, it's by request key. Let's see. When I turn this off, do you work? It does not. When I turn it on all the way, do you work? Probably not. Okay, cool. So it's something about what I did here is not actually happy. So we should, yeah, we're just raising an exception. Oops, raising an exception, and what I could probably actually do is just record the exception here.
Yep.
Why not?
Yep. As
Might
part of
as
that,
well.
though, you'll think you'll need to indent that one also, right?
Probably, or I could even just do this. Here, I'm just gonna have it send it on over to LaunchDarkly. There you go. It's not a good practice, but whatever. Well, although it's still unhappy about it for some reason, with me putting this here. So it's probably something about just like me being bad about error handling in general. But yeah, let's pop this in here, and let's put it above. So, all right, let's give it a shot. I didn't like quit out of my okay, recording something. Yeah, that's from before. I didn't like quit out of my thing, did I? No, it's all still running. Could even try restarting services. That would also work. But now at this point, do you have an idea?
Not sure.
I'm going to try this. If I comment that out, what happens? Okay, still failing to fetch for some reason. So I think it's a bug not related to this that I thought was related to this, but instead I probably broke something else. So to tell you what, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to uncomment that out. I'm going to restart my services, and then we'll see if that works. Restart that. We're going to restart the dev build, which is what I was doing before. Oh, okay. Okay, that one still not working. Now it refused to connect. Why would that be? So I broke something here, but I don't exactly know what I broke. This is the production build. And at this point, yes, it should be giving us that failed to fetch. I agree. Let's try it now with that disabled. So yeah, cool. Okay, great. This is working. Everything's fine. Now I just need to do it like 50-50 available versus unavailable. I don't know what happened there, but restarting the services seemed to sort of fix it. We're going to randomize 50-50 based on request key. And now every time I do this, it will sometimes be bad, again. Sometimes be good. Yeah, there we go. Simulated errors. I like it. Okay, cool. Great. And we've got a new error that showed up. Here's my simulated error. It works. We're getting some data in here. Thanks for going on that journey with me.
Okay,
I'm going to click this related trace button because I think that's a cool one because it shows us like where this is actually coming from. And this is all very much like tied in together with all of these sessions that we have here. So you should be able to see. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Should be able to see kind of where this is coming from. So HTTP statics code exists. Flag evaluations are popped in here. So this is great. Yeah, we're seeing the flag evals for this particular session. Excellent. It's working.
Huzzah.
Yeah.
So now that we kind of have all of the bits and pieces working, we've got our new thing, which is unfortunately throwing us errors and being slow. How would we catch that before it hit production? Because let's say it wasn't giving us any issues in our test environment, or maybe it was and we just didn't catch them. As we want to roll this out for everybody, what would we do?
Good question. Oh yeah, I don't have guardrail metrics right now. So you'll notice I just clicked on the metrics section over on the left. And I already have some auto-generated metrics that's happening here. And so one thing that I would be able to do is to use the user error rate and see what happens as the result of some sort of change. So like how many of my users are getting errors or how many requests are getting errors. These are the types of things that I'd be able to actually get. So with this, we could start to now tie this together with a rollout strategy and make sure that the thing that I am rolling out is not generating more errors than the old version of that thing. So we're actually already sending stuff over to LaunchDarkly. We can do this right away. So what I'm going to do is let's go back to my fancy widget, and I want to start rolling this fancy widget out to all sorts of people. And what I will do is a guarded rollout, because I think this should be our last step here. And these metrics that we want to monitor, turns out it's actually already here. And so we might want to do things like make sure that the time to first byte doesn't get worse, that the error rate doesn't get worse, that any of these don't get worse. And we can even automatically roll this back based on the signals that we start getting here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this to custom and set it to 50% for 6 hours. And we're going to do a 50-50 measurement. Now, usually when we're doing this, we should probably start at like 1%, then 5%, then 10%, et cetera. Here, I'm just going to do 50% so that we can, again, have a 50-50 randomization split every time we hit the reload button. And this now, I think, every time I re-randomize, it'll either give me the fancy widget or not. And it's going to be generating some errors based on this. And so I could like trigger some errors. We can see how that's going. We can trigger some errors again, like later on if my users list doesn't actually fetch. So what this will start to do for us is actually start to compare and contrast the performance of our ultra fancy widget and see whether or not that is generating more errors than those who are not getting the ultra fancy widget. While also testing things like those core web vitals, right? The largest content. Well, which ones did I put in there? Time to first byte, jitter. I don't know what all I put in here. So what this will do is actually it'll wait a little bit. We've already got 6 user exposures here. It's going to wait until it's got enough user exposures to make a credible decision here, because there's an uncertainty score that sort of starts in the background. And we assume there's a 50-50 chance that this is worse than the last thing. That's the prior. So then as I actually hit refresh here a few times, it will move from that 50% up or down based on what it actually detects. So I'm just going to keep clicking this button a few times and we'll be able to start actually seeing some data come in. So it'll be like 30, I think, is the default minimum sample size. Is that correct?
I think so. I know we have some new stuff that we're kind of working on to be able to fine tune that on like a per project basis. But yeah, I think right now it requires 30 exposures in the new group, i.e. kind of like the experimental folks, in order to start building that graph and start showing us results. Yeah, just manually hitting refresh on this page, we're not likely to hit enough for the decisioning to say, okay, we are
probably not.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to actually trigger a regression on this, but this is the process that once we've got your observability metrics set up, your flags set up, it's all now tied together. So if folks getting a particular experience are dealing with more problems in errors, latency, document load time, any of that, then the folks who are not getting a new experience with the flag, guarded rollout will catch that.
Exactly right. Now we could simulate a lot of traffic here. That's actually something that we could pretty easily do. And in fact, we've got a little utility to allow you to do this. So instead of us clicking this button and watching that come in, how about I actually just use that simulator, and we could do something like this. That's the largest contentful paint, and great, that'll work. And then for the user error rate, how about I pop this one in here? And we won't worry about business conversions right now, but we will instead just use this flag, and we will use this SDK key that we had there before. There we go. And this is going to be in my unharshed vibes project. There it is. We should be able to save configuration and start. And I believe, because this guarded rollout is already running, unless, did I misconfigure? Let's see. We'll find out. So it should be unharshed vibes, project where the flag exists. Let's auto create the LaunchDarkly resources and just see if this is already set. So, okay, duplicate flag key, great. It knows that that's going. So now what we should be able to do is, if this guarded release is going, we could start simulating some traffic on over. And oh, wait, do I know? Yeah. Okay, good. It's in the test environment. Very good. We could start sending some stuff over. Either way, that's just a little utility that I've used for some other ones. But in this, we could even just keep clicking refresh. Who knows? And we'll see that data automatically come in. So. Oh, I know why.
Mhm.
I know why. It's because I need a new access token.
Oh,
So
yep.
here's something that I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new access token with my screen paused. And then I'm going to refresh guarded releases. Okay, save token. And that way, what will happen here is I'll be able to actually access this. Sorry for just like having my screen paused on this very fun authorization page. That way it'll actually be able to access that project. And we should be able to start seeing information come in. But
yeah, your access tokens obviously do need to stay private. This is essentially giving the programmatic ability for your code to say, I am Tom, I have these credentials.
exactly. Yeah. You don't want to do that. So anyway, just for the sake of doing this, we've got various different fancy widgets. I might even refresh this just in different tabs, and then we can click the button a whole bunch of times. Boop, 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 boop. And that'll actually send something over for every single time. And now we've got new sessions. We've got new all sorts of stuff that's coming up here. And we'll be able to see all of those start to flow in. So this is just to give everyone an idea of the end result of what this actually empowers, is outside of even just this specific fancy widget, which yes, we'll start seeing more data come in based on all these different sessions. Within a real sort of instance, when you actually have traffic coming in, this will actually automatically measure some of the stuff like the error rate, like the latency, like business conversions, whatever sort of events that you send on over. And this using those observability SDKs is a pretty easy way, because you saw us two just sort of like vibe coding our way in. It didn't take much, right? If you've already got LaunchDarkly, especially, you can just initialize that LaunchDarkly SDK or the observability SDK, and it'll automatically just start sending some of those signals over, like those metrics that we saw a little bit ago. Because those events, we're already seeing these come in quite a bit more often as a result of the sessions that I've had here, and it's automatically still already measuring the effect these metrics have based on this particular flag. So that monitoring is already happening. We're getting some largest contentful paint, some total front end errors. This is on a day by day, and we can start to see all that change history and the effect that it has. As we start to release this fancy new widget out into the wild, that will start to actually analyze that. So I think it's pretty cool that this actually unlocks not just the observability, but also like change level monitoring, so that we can see whether people with that extra fancy widget are seeing a degraded experience and like maybe not able to load users, or it's taking longer to load, whatever those are. Like this sort of changes that we introduce to our end users. This is it's a great way to be able to actually sort of monitor that in real time. So anyway, I could click the button a few more times. We could start to see the graphs fill out, but in just to see a fully fleshed one out that's here. This is one that I ran a little bit earlier that just had some of that sort of traffic that was simulated traffic through like automated testing sending down through, and you'll be able to see that as well. So this was at 55 user exposures. I won't keep clicking the button that many times. to get up to 55 here, but that's what that actually looks like.
Yeah, and I think your point there is really good because not just, people in the industry understand observability. Observability has been around for quite a while. A lot of people are familiar with different observability tools, with OpenTelemetry. What we're talking about here is general observability, yes, but also release level observability, which is an unfamiliar concept because we're kind of spearheading it. So getting that observability right down to the per feature level that at release time to know, is this working well or is this not for this particular cohort of users that have been assigned to get this flag value, and being able to dive that deep and be able to see, okay, this person was part of the experimental group here. They were getting the new feature. They were having trouble. Let me look at their user session out of all the other sessions, the thousands that are pouring in here, and see exactly what they did to encounter this problem, what their activity was, look at their traces, look at their errors, look at their logs. It's really powerful, especially for debugging when something goes wrong, because we all do our best, but sometimes things still go wrong.
Exactly right. So in the background, I actually clicked it a few more times. And now that I'm over 30, we are able to start seeing the actual time to first byte and user error rate, all of those sorts of things. And obviously, this is a pretty small sample size. There's a little bit of luck going on here, but this is just for me actually clicking the refresh button a few times to be able to be able to see what the actual impact is. So largest contentful paint, unsurprisingly, a little bit higher with that fancy widget. Not seeing much of a degradation in time to first byte. That's expected. And I must be getting pretty lucky with the user error rate right now on some of these, but it is showing me what I can expect to see.
With the user error rate, we have that on the fetching the data feature. It's not specifically tied to the widget. So it's what
I would expect those to be roughly the same.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to click it a couple more times, but I think we did it. I mean, just to summarize essentially here in code, what we did is we initialized the LaunchDarkly SDK, got observability and session replay going. That's basically all we did there. And then in the back end, in my Python app, like we simulated some flagging here, along with getting a little bit of LaunchDarkly observability to raise some simulated exceptions there as well. And that, putting those two things together essentially lets us keep track of the user error rate. It lets us keep track of all of these sort of web vitals that we have here. It gave us sessions. So we did that in relatively quick time, and I'm sure that you could too. So let us know when, oh, hey, connection aborted. This is when I restarted my services. So, it's pretty easy to get all of this stuff already put in here. And because it's OTel native, like you'll get to see all of this great data just out of the gate and be able to tie that onto the features that you create. So I hope that this was helpful though. Abram, do you have any closing thoughts, any parting wisdom for us?
No, I mean, that's really it. Is just the base level of getting this up and running is quick. And here we were, we didn't have we weren't working off of a specific template. We were just kind of, hacking our way through, vibe coding some pieces here, just trying things out. And even then, it clearly did not take us long to start getting this up and running, get those signals in,
even with all the goofing.
Right. Even with us, it's like going back and forth on this. And obviously, if you have an existing OTel setup and you need to go mess with the collector, it takes a few extra minutes. It's not a big deal though. And yeah, we hope that this was really useful. We hope this kind of showed the whole process, start to end, and what you can do with it. And that's the exciting thing for us, just seeing how many incidents people avoid with observability, how much more sleep people get when they are not woken up because things are on fire, and LaunchDarkly has caught it early.
Yep. If you do have some questions, or if you want to, reach out and chat with us at any point, please feel free to do that. We're here to help, and we've got many more resources than just Abram and I. But thank you for going on this journey with us. It was honestly a little bit of an experiment on our end too, because we're like, hey, do you want to do this thing? We've never done it before. Let's start from scratch. Cool. So thank you for going along for the ride and working with us as we were, going through some of the realistic ups and downs. So very much appreciate the time. We'll send the recording out, but please don't be strangers. Be in touch. Let us know if you've got questions, and we hope you get hands-on soon.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.